Oh, thank you very much. You found
You've been run over. Are there any broken bones?
No, it's all right.
You let me have
Leave her alone. She promised to put me to bed. Her name is Cynthia. She's my friend.
Yes, hello, Cynthia.
Hello. Well, I tried all night to find out your address, but he didn't wish to come home at all.
Oh, really?
You must have done something terrible to him.
Yes, I did. I took him to a concert. Now, may I have him?
Let her carry me. I like it.
All right, the bedroom's over there. Come on.
You have fun? It was a ball.
Don't put any ideas in his head. You try that again, young man. You'll get a spanking you'll never forget.
Oh, yes. A spanking solves so many things. Or a slap in the face. It's so much easier than understanding.
2 points for her. Welcome to our side, Cynthia.
Oh.
Cynthia, listen, could you come back tomorrow and take care of us? We can't get a maid.
Oh.
It's rough.
Oh, I would like to very much, but I'm preoccupied. That is the right word?
Yes, that'll do. Now, I'd like to thank you properly for all you've done, but may I have my family back for a few minutes first? Would you mind waiting for me in the other room, please?
Of course.
Thank you.
Arrivederci, Roberto.
Roberto's me. It's Italian.
Is it really?
Good night.
Good night. And thank you for the dance.
Anytime.
Well, even with that little clip, any idea as to why people fell in love with Sophia Loren? And why it was so... I know you like her, Mr. Bean. Yeah. What's not to like? She's beautiful, isn't she? And obviously that's why the folks from Necchi, when they were looking at a way to be able to import their Italian machines, like this Supernova, and this particular one is a Supernova ULTRA, which is, you know, just kind of like a step up or a step ahead after this machine was introduced right around 1954. And this company, they knew that Americans were still a little bit nervous, a little bit uneasy about getting machines imported into the U.S. It had happened with the Japanese post-World War II, and the Americans still remembered the American market getting flooded with these Japanese clone machines that had been built around the plans and the designs of American companies that were already manufacturing these machines. Excuse me. So when the Italians were looking at a plan to be able to come into the country without as much trepidation, as much fear on the part of Americans, and saying it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. These Italians are going to be a repeat of the Japanese coming into our market, flooding our market, putting our businesses out of business, and selling or undercutting machines that are already being introduced to the American people. Well, the Italians said, how can we do this? How can we legitimize a move like this so that the Americans will not only allow it, but will embrace it and say, yeah, come on, come on, come on. There you go. Right there. Sophia Loren was already loved because of movies like you just saw a little clip of, which was shot back in 1958, just a few years after the Supernova was introduced. And this particular movie was called Houseboat. And obviously the man playing opposite her is Cary Grant. Cary Grant was adored by the American people. And so when Necchi was saying, okay, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, we're going to put a person that's played opposite Cary Grant in front of the American people, standing with our machine, representing our machine, endorsing our machine, loving our machine. And Sophia Loren had such a natural charisma, such a natural beauty. Even today, she's still an absolute drop-dead gorgeous woman. And so that was the secret bullet, if you will, that Necchi used to put the fear to rest, to invite the American people to welcome them with open arms, because they were being escorted into the American marketplace with a beauty that was already loved on the big screen, Sophia Loren. All right, I could rant and rave all day long, because I think that she is just magic. She's magic. And she brought magic to this brand and legitimacy to this brand, so that the American people not only allowed it, but they embraced it and they fell in love with it. And they fell in love with the lines that were as curvaceous and as sexy on these machines as they fell in love with the lines and the beauty and the sexiness of Sophia Loren. Well, this machine that we're looking at belongs to a local lady. And her name is Marie Orlando. Orlando. And she is from the great city of Crivets, Wisconsin. If anyone wants to win brownie points, get an A in the class, and be on my favorite student list, Google Crivets, Wisconsin. And it's spelled C-R-I-V-I-T-Z. C-R-I-V-I-T-Z. And type in some interesting facts about that city, would you? Type in some cool stuff about it. Not just like the population and, you know, they have this many dogs and cats and, you know, pet squirrels or who knows what. But type in some cool stuff about Crivets, Wisconsin, because this is an original owner machine that Marie Orlando got when it was brand spanking new back in the 50s. And this has been her go-to machine forever. Forever. And it was experiencing troubles. And we'll see kind of some of the things that I did to this beauty back when we go to Facebook on those shots. And also a really unique color on this machine too, don't you agree? A number of people, when I posted some of these pictures on Facebook, they right away said, wow, I love. And some people called it pink. Some people called it, I think, salmon. So you could type in the chat. Let me turn this light back on. You could type in the chat what color you think this is. And I'll kind of walk you around the machine so you can get a closer look at that color as well. So let's start on the right side before we launch into any sew-offs. Stop right about there. So these two little switches right here on the right side of the machine, this one right here and this one right here. This switch in the front is going to be your light on switch, but it's also going to be your power on switch as well, which means if you don't flip that on, unlike some machines where even before you turn the light on, you have power to that machine. It's live, it's ready to go, so you got to be careful because if you push on that foot controller, if you bump that foot controller inadvertently and your hand is anywhere near that needle and you haven't turned the light on yet, you're going to get a bad injury. On this one, until you flip that switch to the right to turn on the light, you're safe. You've got no direct power to that machine. Now this second switch right here, I'd like to call it a power up button. It's going to give you kind of a boost and give you max power as soon as you flip it from left to right. It's going to give you a boost. It's going to push that electricity up on the machine to give you a little bit more gumption for sewing. This little doodad right here is in a little accessory spot where there would have been another feature added to the machine, but they never did. So they put this little plug over it. And there's actually a little bit of glue residue around it as well that I tried to clean off as best as I could, but there's still just a little bit there. I can kind of see it. This is for feed dog drop. And when you rotate this so that it's pointing at these little blocks or at these little blocks over here, like so, you're going to notice that kind of pops up, and that's going to disengage the feed dog feed. As soon as you push it back down and you rotate it, you're going to have the feed dogs fully engaged again. So, real simple process there. The Italians like to make it easy for folks. And they also had a little bit of mystery in them as well. And that might be when you discover what you need to do in order to wind a bobbin. You're kind of looking around the machine and you're going, okay, I see the tensioner down there. I see the clutch. Interesting clutch because it has 2 screws instead of 1, like oftentimes on machines. But where's the bobbin winding assembly? Huh, I wonder if somehow it's tucked away. Because the Italians were really big about tucking things away in their machines. They didn't want anything to break those sexy lines of the machine, to include a bobbin winder. So you have to open this little door, and then you have to slide this over to engage it. And then it's going to have contact with that track on the balance wheel, and you'll be able to wind a bobbin with this door open. But the Italians are real definite about not wanting to break those lines. So as soon as you're done, you rotate it back over, like so, and then close that door, so that the sexy lines of this machine are evident. You don't want anything to take that curvaceous look away from it, because otherwise Sophia Loren is not going to approve either, because she wants to be representing, where am I? She wants to be representing a sexy, curvaceous Italian machine, not one that's got something sticking out of the front of it. Right? So as we move up the machine, away from this branding mark of SUPERNOVA ULTRA, we're moving right up here to where the stitch length is. That's this control right here. And you can move it from all the way up to 4, which will give you the largest stitch, all the way down. Oh, I'm still turning it. I'm still turning it. I'm still turning it. And right now we're at 0.5. Tell me about another machine where you can get down to the 0.5 range on a sewing machine. What kind of sewing machine is that? I've shown it several times on this channel. So you can actually go all the way down to 0, but then they've got a little red block. I don't know if you can see that in the shot or not. They've got a little red block that, according to the book, is the sweet spot for satin stitching. Right there. That little block right there. You can still see dirt on there. This was a very, very dirty machine when I started cleaning it. I still have a little bit of dirt around that knob. Of course, I zoom in so close on machines that most often you would never, ever, ever see it. Because most people, when they do premieres and videos and stuff, they're never getting that close to the machine. It's always a little bit of a distance out. Yeah, that's better, but it's still got a little bit of that on there. But this is the stitch length, and again, if you go to that little red block, you're going to be in the satin range. I don't think we'll sew quite that small today. I think we'll be, probably more commonly, we'll be up in the realm of 4, or we might, for some of the zigzagging that we do, we might drop down to 2 in that area. But we'll leave it on 4 for right now. And right above it is obviously reverse. You push it in, you're sewing in reverse. You push it again to bring it back out, and then you're sewing forward again. Right over here we've got a control center that does a couple of different things. And let me pick out some music while I'm introducing this machine. Some Italian style music, I think. Let's see here. How about Seaside Piazza? Seaside Piazza. There we go. Had to click it a couple of times. I want to give kind of an Italian flavor to this entire premiere because it's an Italian machine. There's an Italian beauty that represented this machine and made it famous in America because she was already loved. We know who she is. So these are little, basically boundary setters for our stitch width. As we move the stitch width over this way, let's say we want to set it right around 3. We can set this little marker over there as well, screw it in, and it'll hold it there for us so that we can make sure that we don't deviate from whatever zigzag width we're aiming to get. And there's obviously a lower boundary and an upper boundary for it as well. Then we've got needle position. Left needle position, right needle position, and center where we're going to be sewing the majority of the time, pretty much all the time during this premiere today. And then we've got just one other control just to the top of it. That's going to be for cam functions. Yes, this machine is able to sew with cams, but the owner doesn't have any. This little door would open on top here, and then you would insert your cams, a lot like the other machines that you've seen that will take cams up top here. And then you simply turn this knob to activate that cam function, similar to other machines. What else? Oh, the daisy wheel deal. This is interesting. This is something very unique to the Italian Supernova. Something very unique to the Italian Supernova. That's so pretty. Let's play it one more time. I love that. I love the sound of that, don't you? You feel like you're in Italy. So this little plate right here, I call it a daisy wheel because you can spin it around. You can spin it around either way to have a different cover for your feed dogs. Right now it's on the standard cover for anything from zigzagging to, you could use it for cam stitching as well. It's going to be a standard type feed dog cover. But this one right here, if you wanted to use a left needle position exclusively, you could rotate it around to the feed dogs. Or this one in the rear right here is for twin needle sewing exclusively. Now when you open up the face, not the faceplate, excuse me, when you open up the cover for the bobbin, there's a little button that you can depress. I'll show that to you real quick. Let's come off the tripod and take a look at that. So when you open up this cover, you can see a little button right there. See that? And all you do is you put your thumb or your finger on it, you push it, and then you're going to notice this little pin pop up. It's kind of subtle, but it popped up. And then what you can do is you can rotate this like so. I won't actually rotate it because I have the thread coming through there right now. But you could rotate it all the way around to this one. Again, if you use this one, you would have to move your needle position all the way to the left, because you can see that there's already a preset hole. There's already a preset hole for a left needle position. So you'd want to make sure you do that, otherwise you're going to be hitting the plate. And then this one again, if you rotated it all the way around to this one, you would have a plate designed specifically for twin needle sewing. Notice the the opening of the throat plate there that would allow for a second needle side by side. And then when you're done goofing around like I just was, you can push this back down. It may take two hands. I think it will take two hands. Tell you what, let me go back on the tripod to get that back into position. It's a little bit tricky. It's a neat concept, but it's just a little bit tricky when it comes to engaging it and disengaging it. And obviously every time you decide to switch between one of those modes, you have to pull that thread back up through the throat plate, because otherwise it's not going to be there. It's not going to be there. So Seaside Piazza is the first one we heard. Now we're going to listen to one that is called Mamas. Mamas. Okay, so this is in the up position right now, which is not good. We're wanting to use it, so I'm going to depress that little button again. And then it should, unless it's going to try to embarrass me, it should go back down. And it did. Okay. So that's my brief tutorial on using this daisy wheel to get different throat plate covers. Again, this one is going to be exclusively for a left needle. Hold on a second. Mama was getting pretty excited there and a little bit loud. This one is exclusively for left needle position sewing, twin needle sewing or dual needle sewing, and then standard sewing for this one that we're using right now. Okay, just making sure I've got everything in place. And we'll walk around the machine at the end and take a look at some of the other features of it as well. But since we're down here right now at the needle, why don't we do our first sew off? Why don't we do our first sew off on this Supernova Ultra that belongs to Marie Orlando. Marie Orlando. I think we'll launch with... launch with some... Why don't we do genuine elk hide to start? Although, you know, it's an Italian machine, it's almost sacrilegious to put elk hide or protected full grain leather or even vegetable tan leather or vegan leather in front of Italian leather. It's not right, right? So let's go ahead and do some Italian leather. So I've got 2 layers of Italian leather here, probably about 8 ounces. Italian leather is sometimes cut, it's a little bit thinner. So we probably have about 8 ounces, which for Paula Noel, I think, is my lady that likes measurements. You're looking at right around 4 millimeters of leather, 4 millimeters of leather. And while we're down at the needle, I'll tell you, we have a Schmetz size 90 universal needle in here today, which is a size 14. So it's, you know, it's not a tiny needle. It's right around mid-range because, you know, recently on some of the premieres, you've seen me using 110 size needles, which, I mean, those are, I think Sonny referred to them as harpoons. And they really are. They're huge, huge needles. Okay. So that music ended, mamas. Now we're going to launch into this. And we'll start out with 2 layers of this Italian leather for this Italian machine. I'm just checking something really quick. Wonderful book resource that this machine has. I wanted to see if there was something else I wanted to mention. don't think so. I think I covered it. Okay, yeah. Excellent, okay. All right, so let's launch into this first sew off. Again, we have 2 layers of Italian leather for this Italian machine, and we'll see how this Supernova Ultra does managing leather of this thickness and of this grade. All right, are you ready? Okay, here we go. Once I get my slipper on the foot controller, that is. Okay, here we go now. It's got a little bit of get up and go. You know what I mean? It's got get up and go. And that's because it comes with right around a 0.8 amp motor that peaks at 1 amp. And there's no markings on the motor specifically, but I can gauge that based on the foot controller that's rated at 0.9 amps that is original to this machine. The Italians didn't always mark their motors, and so you have to make certain extrapolations, for lack of a better word. Okay, let's take a look at these stitches now. I'm going to kind of balance it right there. I'm hoping that that'll stay. And if you hear a little humming sound in the background, that's my fan, because it's still pretty daggone warm in Wisconsin right now. Okay, I think I've got it. I think I might have it. Italian leather is a little bit slippery and it's a little wiggly, so. All right, let's check out these stitches. So again, we've got 2 layers, as you can see there, 2 layers of Italian leather. Let's pause right there. That is page 34, folks. Page 34. Absolutely brilliant stitching on the part of this Supernova Ultra. Laying down stitching that is absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And Italian leather, you can even see it from the nap that's kind of sticking up from the back there. That stuff is super tricky to sew. Again, it's got a slipperiness to it, and it's got a density to it that is unmatched by other leathers, other than maybe protected full grain leather. And even when we come out and look at the totality of stitching, which we have to come out quite a distance, why don't we go to right about there? It's absolutely spot on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, the glory of the stitch, the Italian glory of the stitch is just absolutely spot on. Let's turn it around, and I'll kind of lean it towards the camera as well so you can see the thickness of what we sewed again. And let's take a look at that lock stitch. See if there's anything dramatically different. I doubt it. This Italian Necchi does a fabulous job when it comes to stitch quality. Well, it does after I got done with it. Not so much so before. All right, let's hold this up with the clips because it's trying to be very independent right now and say, I don't want to lean that way. Okay. See how it's curling? That is the nature of this stuff. That is the nature. Let's see if we can angle it just a little bit more. Okay. It's maybe it's camera shy. Maybe it's camera shy. It did fine off camera. Now it's on camera and it's like, I don't want it. I'm nervous. So let's move across and look at those lock stitches. Again, look at the thickness of that leather that we just went through. Pause right there. Folks, that is absolutely page 34. Absolutely spectacular stitching. From start to finish, the spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, through 2 layers of Italian leather is just unbelievably page 34. I would even say page 34 plus. Why don't we say that? Let's say page 34 plus, which is totally appropriate since it's kind of like a Supernova plus being a Supernova Ultra, right? Totality of the stitching is just absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. I'm going to throw this to the back as a definite pass and say that Italian leather, the most important sew-off that we're going to do because of this Italian machine, is just absolutely spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. Okay, how about some more Italian music? This next one is called Italian Morning. Italian Morning. I had to turn this up a little bit. Let's do some more sewing with this great Italian machine. And since we're sewing leather already, let's continue that for a little bit longer, shall we? We'll do some protected full grain leather now. So a single layer of protected full grain leather is right around 3, almost 4 ounces. So probably right around 3 millimeters of thickness. Let's buzz down and see how this machine does with protected full grain leather, and we might add a second layer to it. Alright, a single layer of protected full grain leather. Again, processed specifically with a coating to keep it from getting stained or damaged, and it is just incredibly difficult stuff to get through. Very, very intense. Alright, here we go. Absolutely brilliant stitching. Well, I would almost say on this we're going to have to back off our upper tension just a hair. I'm going to take it from 7 to 6 because our top stitch is looking a little bit underserved. I'll show it to you and then we'll sew it down a second time. And again, it just goes to show you with that protected layer that they put on this stuff, it makes it much more difficult for that top stitch to make its way back up to the top with that thread. Let's take a look at this. It's a very good looking top stitch, but just a little bit underserved. See if you can see the same thing I do. See right there, just a little weak. A little bit weak. It just shows you the leather grades and the processing can really impact how you need to manage tension and stitch balance. All in all, I would say a near page 34 stitch, but a little bit underserved. Right there we're at page 34 for sure. But there's other spots that it's just a little bit weak. So let's make a slight adjustment. We'll look at totality of stitching first. Beautiful stitching, near page 34. But what we're going to do now is, actually I already have done it. We're going to move our stitch upper tension. We moved it from 7 down to 6. And if you're brand new to sewing or brand new to vintage, the upper tension is going to define your lock stitch. The bobbin case below in this oscillating hook system is going to define your top stitch. So it's a tug of war constantly between the upper tension pulling up to define the lock stitch and the bobbin case pulling down to define the top stitch. And right now our top stitch, you know, if you look at it right now, it's quite good, but it could even be better. And that goes back to our principle in the workshop of kanai, constant and never-ending improvement. We're always looking to make things better. That's why our page 34 for a beautiful stitch is a near perfect stitch. It's not a perfect stitch. So we bumped again our upper tension from 7 down to 6 to see if we can give a little bit more poppiness to this top stitch. So let's pick out a little bit more Italian music, and then we're going to sew off this protected full grain leather one more time. And again, we did 2 layers of Italian leather with no issues whatsoever with that stitch balance, finding that sweet spot. But now that we're sewing this protected full grain leather, and it has that extra coating that they put on it to make it more resilient against staining and to make it more resilient in general, that piercing threshold has gone up. And as that take-up arm, and as that the machine is trying to pull that thread, to suck that thread back up to define that lock stitch, it's having a little bit of trouble with too much definition and resulting in our top stitch being weak. I think I made sense when I said that, but not really. We got to give a little bit more poppiness to that top stitch. All right, so I've already made the adjustment. Let's sew down this single layer one more time, and then we'll look at these stitches side by side and see if we were successful in giving a little bit more definition to that top stitch. Again, as you look at it, it's not bad. It's not bad, especially considering the thickness of leather that we're sewing. All right, enough blah, blah, blah. Let's try it again. Let's try it again with that simple upper tension adjustment. All right, here we go. Don't you love the sound of that machine? It's just going. Oh, there's a profound difference. Just with that simple little adjustment, you'll see what I'm saying, and I'll leave the tails on so we can distinguish it a little bit more easily. Oh yeah, wow, wow! See that? That's why we believe in the kanai principle, because we're always committed to doing better and to making it better. So the bottom row is the first row we did where it was lacking poppiness in certain areas. Certain spots were clearly a page 34, other spots were marginal. Now we've got page 34 rock solid all the way across. Let's zoom in and take a look at it. Absolutely. Wow. And see, that's where knowing what to do is so critical. See here on the bottom row where we had lack of poppiness? The stitch is just clearly that there was too much power up top defining that lock stitch, and it was taking away from the bobbin trying to define this top stitch. We made that little adjustment, giving a little bit more power to that upper tension, and look at the result. I'm actually going to rotate that a little bit more. What a big difference. What a big difference. Maybe I rotated it too far. Yeah, I did. Yeah, inevitably it's going to be a little bit curved because that's what leather does. But look at those stitches up top compared to the ones on bottom. Look at the ones on the bottom, look at the ones up top. Night and day. Or difference between morning and evening, since this song is called Italian Morning. Look at that. That top row, absolutely page 34. Bottom row was lacking. Beautiful, just like Sophia Loren. Just like Sophia Loren, those are beautiful, beautiful stitches. All right, totality of the stitching, you can even see, let's stop right there. You can even see from this distance, especially if I move a little bit to the left, the caliber of stitches on the bottom. And then when we made that slight adjustment, taking a little bit of power away from that upper tension so that the bobbin case could define that top stitch better, give us more of a poppy top stitch. Look at the two comparatively. It's so evident. And all it was just a simple upper tension adjustment. And understanding the concept of the tug of war, where that upper tension is pulling up, that bobbin case is pulling down. And that upper tension had too much muscle. It was just too muscular. We took some of its muscle away and gave it back to that bobbin case, and look at the result. Look at the result. It's just crazy different. Crazy different. Absolutely spectacular. So a single layer of this protected full grain leather is an absolute pass and an absolute page 34 on the second sew off that we did going through this protected full grain leather. So I'm going to throw that to the back. I better get a drink. I'll throw that to the back as a definite pass. And let me pick out a little bit more Italian flavored music as we come out and look at this beauty of an Italian machine. Again, just the epitome of sexy and beautiful. The same design features that prompted other machine makers to scramble as we were moving into the 50s and heading closely towards the 60s, the 1960s. It caused other machine makers like Singer to come out with sexier models to try to compete with the Italian ones that were in the marketplace, like this SUPERNOVA ULTRA. All right, this next one is called Brunswick Torritella Loop. Oh yeah, I'm feeling Italian right now. I'm feeling very Italian. Let's head back down. For more sewing! With this Italian beauty. We've got our Swedish beauties, right? We also have Italian beauties. All right. Hey! Up. Ho! Hey! Ho! Hey! What is that? Blocking the camera. Mr. Bean. No, I know it's your machine. You were the guy in all the pictures. I saw you. Nice job. All right, do a turn. Do a turn. Then we gotta get back to the machine. No, you can unfreeze. I know the music stopped. All right, bye. Yeah, that is an abrupt ending on that song, isn't it? I mean, you're dancing along, you're feeling really Italian, then all of a sudden you just, somebody pulled the cord. Somebody pulled the cord, for goodness sakes. All right. So let's jump into a leather that you don't see very much on this channel. You don't see it on this channel very often. And it's none other than vegetable tan leather. And vegetable tan leather is about as tricky and as difficult as the leather that we just sewed, the protected full grain leather. As a matter of fact, we might have to do some tweaking on this one too. We're going to be doing a single layer, which is right around, I would say, close to 4 ounces. So about close to 3 millimeters of thickness. And this vegetable tan leather is I mean, it's magnificent stuff, but it's also very tricky when it comes to sewing with it because of the density of the leather nap. So we're going to try leaving the settings as they are, assuming that we're going to encounter the same problem with this leather that we just did with the protected full grain leather. Again, no problem with Italian leather. We did 2 layers of that and it was just absolutely as it should be. But let's sew this really, this is going to be a long sew off. Let's sew this off and see how that stitch balance is. And also, I'm not going to have any music playing because I want you to listen to just how beautifully this machine is running. All right, here we go. A single layer of vegetable tan leather. 1, 2, 3. Oh, slow down, buddy. Slow down. Steady as she goes. Steady as she goes. That is one excited machine. That is one very excited machine. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that we left it like it was, because these are some page 34 stitches. Absolutely page 34 stitches. I'm gonna have to walk these past the camera because I have such a long piece of vegetable tan leather. And you know, when you look at the stitch presentation of this vegetable tan leather, you know right away why my friend Dusty over in Colorado loves to work with this stuff. The predominant leather that Dusty works with, and if you don't know who Dusty is, if you're saying, Dusty what? Dusty who? Then you obviously have not been following this channel real close, because I presented Dusty to you in an interview, and he is just an amazing guy. His talent in working as a master leather craftsman, and also his love for industrial machines. And now I'm kind of influencing him a little bit, and he's picking up more and more what would be considered traditional household machines. I think I'll bring it in like right about there, and we'll kind of walk it past the camera. But he loves vegetable tan leather. A lot of his work has been done with vegetable tan leather. The work that he did for Alice Cooper and Johnny Depp and others. Okay, now I have your attention. If you're brand new to this channel or brand new to VSM, you're going, Alice Cooper? Johnny Depp? What? Yeah, that's some of the work that Dusty has done for some of these great celebrities. And just brilliant work. You'll have to check that out on the channel. Type in Dusty or type in something like that, and you'll find his interview, and you'll see some of his work, which is just bang on. Absolutely bang on. All right. Well, you can already see the stitching. I know. It's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let's turn our volume down a little bit, but I want to listen to another version of Brushwick Torrentella Thatched Villages is what this one is called. And it runs a lot longer than the other one. Thank goodness. All right, let's look at these stitches. Let's look at these stitches and be amazed. Let's be amazed. Go all the way over to here, to the very end. I know. Page 34 plus. Page 34 plus. We're still going, folks. I hope you had something to eat for breakfast, because we're going to get hungry. We're almost at the end. I'm going to come in a little bit closer. All right, let's go down one more time. Not that we need to. I mean, it's so obvious. Why is my camera going out of focus? I bet you it's picking up my arm. All right, pause right there. Absolutely page 34. Let's flip it over and look at the lock stitch. Well, white thread on kind of a whitish leather. We can still see it, but it's a little bit more challenging, right? But that is absolutely page 34 lock stitch too. I understand why Dusty likes vegetable tan leather now. It is beautiful, beautiful leather to work with, isn't it? I mean, just look at that stitching. Of course, if I flip it the other way, it's easier to see it, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Wow. Wow! Absolutely page 34, folks. I'm going to throw this very seldom seen on this channel, but maybe you'll be seeing more of it now. Vegetable tan leather to the rear. Wow, look at that stuff. All right. Back with the protected full grain leather. Back with the Italian leather. Back. Let's do a quick wipe off on this Italian beauty. I heard Sophia saying very softly with her beautiful Italian accent, leather droppings, leather droppings, leather droppings. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, goodness. I could listen to that song a couple more times. Oh my gosh, they have another version of it. Brushwick Tarantella. They've got it like 3 times. It is a very, very popular Italian song. Yes, it is. It's a very popular Italian song. I wonder if we should try that. I did a single layer of this. I wonder if we should try 2 layers of this vegetable tan leather back to back. What do you guys think? Type in the chat if you think we should do that. This is what it would look like right here. 2 layers of vegetable tan leather. This machine just loved doing that single layer. Wouldn't it love even more doing 2 layers? Type in the chat if you think if it should be even more excited and more in love to sew these 2 layers versus the one that already did. The one that it already did. All right, let's just do it. We'll sew down a line right next to the other one. We'll go through 2 layers of this, and hopefully our sweet spot on tension remains. I don't know. 2 layers, that's doubling what we're doing right now. So we'll see. We will see soon enough. All right, total silence in the workshop. Let's buzz down and see if we can do 2 layers of this now. All right. Sophia Loren power. Here we go. 1, 2. Steady, 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 steady. I kind of did like a cool little split thing there, but that wasn't planned. That just happened. That just happened. Oh my goodness. Just when you think, I mean, we were impressed. Let me leave these tails on so we can see the difference easily enough. We were impressed with a single layer. Wait until you see this double layer. Holy mackerel. Holy mackerel! It does love it even more. It loves it even more. Goodness gravy. All right, I'm going to use my stitch off holder that Maddie sent me from Florida because we're going to need it now, I think. I think we're going to need it now. So we can really look at these stitches. All right, I think I've got the right angle. I think I have it balanced. I don't think it'll fall. It might not fall. It may fall. It could fall. All right, leave it right there. Let's take a look at these. I'm going to listen to that song one more time because I think it was absolutely spectacular. Brunswick Tarantella Thatched Villages. Yes, it is. Oh yeah. It's music like this that just makes me feel very Italian. So again, the bottom row, we already saw that. The top row that I left a little tail on so you could see it more easily is the 2 layers that we just sewed of this vegetable tan leather. Let's go across and take a look. Wow. Holy cow! Page 34 plus. Page 34 plus. That's 2 layers, folks, of vegetable tan leather. Look at the thickness of that. Well, you can see the thickness of the 1 layer. Take that times 2. Unbelievable. Wow! Let's look at that again. Totality of the stitching. Zooming in. Totality of the stitching. Zooming in. Oh yeah. I am feeling very Italian. Very Italian. Let's flip it over and look at the lock stitch. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at that thickness, folks. That's what we just sewed. Now on the other side, you're going to see a single line of stitching because we sewed a second layer and there's only 1 line of stitching. 2 layers here, or 2 lines of stitching, 1 line of stitching for the lock. And let's see what we think of that. All right, stay still, stay still, stay still. All right, that's as good as I can get it to cooperate. Maybe those, I'll move those forward too. Hey! Ho! All right, so this is our lock stitch coming through that second layer of vegetable tan leather. Pause right there. Page 34 plus. That runs like 3 minutes and something, but it's just not long enough. It's such a great song, isn't it? Folks, it doesn't get any better than this. It just doesn't. And again, we're not sewing with a leather needle. It's not like, oh, you've got an edge up, Scott, on these 2 layers of vegetable tan leather because you're using a leather needle. No, we're not. We're using a size 90, which equates to a size 14 Schmetz universal needle. This is a needle that Schmetz made based on the point, the eye of the needle, and the scarf of the needle, specifically to handle a wide scope of materials. They really designed it for me. Thank you, Schmetz. They made it just for me because every time I do sew-offs, I do a wide field of sew-offs and all kinds of materials. And they're like, we got to give this guy a needle or he's going to be like struggling, switching between needles and changing needles. And well, he doesn't have to do that because look at. But it's not just the needle, folks. It's that the machine has been prepared painstakingly to be able to deliver at this level. Do not think that you can pick up any Necchi Super Nova, Ultra or otherwise, and sew at this level and lay down a stitch that looks like this. It's not going to happen. The 16 hours that I poured into this machine is what makes the difference. But I am grateful for the needle. Thank you, Schmetz. I am grateful for the needle so I can use it to sew a wide field of materials. But folks, what can I say? That is absolutely, we'll come right to about there. That's absolutely page 34. Page 34 lock, actually, correction. Page 34 plus lock, page 34 plus top stitch on these 2 layers of vegetable tan leather. Unbelievable. All right, another version of Brunswick Tarantella. They have like 4 or 5 versions of this song. It's a popular song in Italy. I bet you Sophia could tell us about this song. Yes, she could. But she's not talking. She's just looking really gorgeous. There she is. Mr. Bean? I know it's the truth. I know. All right. So a definite pass on these 2 layers of vegetable tan leather. No, it's not. Yes, it is. 2 layers, really? Holy mackerel. That's impressive. That's our lock stitch? That's our top stitch. To the back as a definite pass with our Italian leather and our protected full grain leather. We are just leather crazy. Hey, Italians like leather. Yes, they do. Hey! Well, we're doing it. We might as well do genuine elk hide after I get a drink. Genuine elk hide. If you're brand new to this channel, elk hide is chemically processed, which raises the threshold through the roof. Oh, that hit the spot. Yeah, it did. And no, I'm not drinking my lemonade today. If you wonder what I'm drinking, it's none other than Diet Pepsi. Yep. I've stayed loyal to Diet Pepsi. Those of you that follow me real closely know at one time I was an executive working with their educational programs at Pepsi. Great company. Great company. All right. And this is a great leather that we're about to sew. Genuine elk hide. There we go. I got the camera exactly where I want it. Hopefully I don't kick the tripod. Here we go! A single layer of elk hide. Hey! Hey! All right. You Italian Beauty. You Supernova Ultra. Let's eat this leather up. 1, 2, and 3! Oh, that was so tough. That was so difficult. I didn't think we were going to make it. Yeah, that was... Wow. That was too easy. Clip. To the back. Clip. Oh, geez, I just pulled a stitch out. I was so excited. Stop that, Scott. Stop that. Don't ruin the stitching. All right, let's look at the top stitch first. Before the music stops, it's about to stop. Hey! Wow. I was so close. I was so close. One more time. One more time. Okay, all right, we won't play it one more time. We played it like 20 times. Let's do Our French Cafe. Our French Cafe. A single layer of elk hide, about 3 or 4 ounces of leather, chemically processed. Absolutely gorgeous. If I were sewing a ton of this, though, I probably would bump back. Let me see where our setting is right now. Yeah, we're at 6 right now on upper tension. I think that this top stitch looks really good, but elk hide is just extra tough when it comes to pulling that thread back up through and being able to pierce it. We'll see how that lock stitch works. That's the one I cut right down there. Just ignore that one. Pause right there. Page 34. Absolutely beautiful. Let's look at the totality stitching. That's some really good looking stitching. I wouldn't give it a page 34 plus, but I would definitely give it a page 34. Definitely a page 34. Let's turn it around and look at that lock stitch. And look at again the thickness of this elk hide. Chemically processed. Anything but easy when it comes to sewing through it. See how we did on that lock stitch. Again, the lock stitch is going to be defined by that upper tension, which we turned back a little bit. We took it from 7 down to 6. Well, I'll tell you one thing, it didn't hurt us at all, did it? That lock stitch, even from this distance, looking at the totality of stitching, is just absolutely spot on. Let's zoom in on that. Yeah, I think with the all the other leathers that we've sewn, the protected full grain leather, the vegetable tan leather, the Italian leather, the balance is good where we had it. Here we're almost getting a little bit of a compression of that stitch if you look right in the center of the screen, which is telling me that my hunch was right as we were looking at that top stitch, that if we were sewing a ton of this elk hide, we would back off that upper tension even more than we already have. We're at 6 right now. We'd take it down to like 5.5 so that we can give a little more poppiness to that top stitch. But it's still very, very good. It just shows you as you go from one leather type to another, the machine can manage it beautifully, but sometimes you just have to tweak it a little bit, you know? Page 34. Page 34 lock stitch. All in all, page 34. So, looking at the totality of stitching again on this lock stitch with a single layer of elk hide, folks, it just doesn't get much better than that. Again, being really, really particular and being very, very, looking at it at a very, underneath the microscope. I think we could take a little bit away from this and give it back to that top stitch, and then we would be in the sweetest of spots with our stitch balance. But again, looking at this, page 34, we rotate it around to that top stitch again. Definitely page 34. But I think we can always improve things, right? We can always make it better. That's what Kanai is all about. Constant and never-ending improvement. So, yeah. But it's a definite pass. After all that blah, blah, blahing, it's a definite pass. We just can't get out of this cafe. We're stuck in this cafe. So far we've sewn protected full grain leather, Italian leather, vegetable tan leather, elk hide leather, elk leather, elkish leather. And this Italian Beauty is, it's just unbelievable how it's maintaining stitch integrity with all of those leathers. Just magnificent. No wonder Sophia wanted to represent this brand, huh? Hello. Hello. All right. Well, let's see if we move over to quasi-real leather, some of this vegan leather. Let's see if this machine continues to be able to deliver at the level that it has. Let's see if this Necchi Super Nova ULTRA is still ultra and still super with semi-real leather. We'll start with a single layer of it. You can look at the back and see straight away there's no nap there because it's vegan leather. And there may be some animal byproducts in here. You never know. You never do know. You never know. All right, a single layer of this. Let's see how we do on this. The song ended perfectly right at the end. All right, a single layer. We're going to sew it on this side, and then we'll probably add a second layer to it. Here we go. was fun. All right. Beautiful stitching. Wow! Absolutely spectacular. It is loving this as much as it's loving that vegetable tan leather that we sewed. Absolutely. So we will add a second layer to this. Right after we look at these stitches. We'll look at these stitches first, and then we'll add that second layer. Yeah, why don't I use my sew-off holder just to make it a little bit easier. Wow. I'm already seeing page 34, folks. So this next one is called Morning Stroll. We listened to the cafe one, Our French Cafe, several times, along with the other one before that. So now we're going to put on a different one, Morning Stroll. Ooh! Pause. That almost sounds like the beginning of the Monk. Yeah, it does. I'm seeing Sharona coming on any second now. Alright, so this is our top stitch on a single layer of vegan style leather. Here we go. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. I'm just going to angle that a little bit more. There we go. And you see how between the stitches there's almost like a pop-up of the material, and that's because there's vinyl in there. Piercing vinyl, and yeah, it's not easy. And lesser supernovas would be skipping stitches with this kind of material. But not Marie's. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. Totality of the stitching. Yeah, let's go right about to there. Totality of the stitching is absolutely page 34. I would even say it's on the fringe of page 34 plus. Yes, it is. Perfect timing. Thank you, Song. Thank you. Thank you. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitch and see how this Italian Beauty did in managing sewing through this vinyl-based, man-made vegetable tan leather. Might have animal products, you never know. Let's see what we think of this. Holy mackerel, Monk is back again! Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm at page 34 already. Let's zoom in on it. Wow. Wow! Pause right there. Pause right there. Absolutely page 34. But again, as you're working with these different quasi-leathers and real leathers, if you're sewing a ton of this stuff, you may end up improving it even more by a little tweak. And I'm kind of back to that again, like the last sew-off we did with the genuine elk hide. I'm loving this lock stitch, but at the same time, we may end up tweaking it one way or another. You know what I mean? Especially as we look at adding another layer now. But that is absolutely page 34. Let's come out on this. Isn't that gorgeous? That is just gorgeous. That's gorgeous! All right, let's add a second layer to it. And that's actually kind of too big of a layer, isn't it? So let's cut this down. I don't want to waste it. Yes! Right on the end of cutting! I am so much on my game today. This is so exciting. All right, so we're going to put these back to back now. And then we're going to sew off a second layer of this. So we have two layers all together, like that. And I don't remember where the camera is adjusted. Oh my goodness, like we're way out there. You can still see it though. So let me get this under the presser foot. We'll sew down another layer and see if it manages 2 layers of this vegan style leather as well as it did that single layer. Or whether or not it has a challenge. Because I haven't seen much of a challenge yet from this Italian Beauty. Just haven't. Alright, so we got it in position. I promise I will not play the monk song one more time. Because we're almost down our list of Italian songs already. Goodness gravy. They're not giving us enough Italian music. Ooh. I love it. All right, let me turn him up a little bit. Gotta hear this dude. And you know who would love this? Bill, this is for you, buddy. This is for you, Bill. This is for my buddy Bill O.
Quei pennacchini, quel cappello, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante. Non vedrai farfalloni amoroso.
2 layers of take 2. 2 layers of vegan style leather. Here we go!
Schioppo in spalla, sciabla a fianco, collo dritto, muso franco, pulcro casco.
So we talked a lot about tension, right? But the other thing we have to factor in as well is presser foot pressure. And you're going to see on this second sew-off with this. Wow, look at that stuff. Any question if there's vinyl in there? We sewed the arches. Look at Mom, look at. That is kind of cool though. Look at that. I love it. I can see somebody typing in the chat before this sew-off going, well, is there really that much vinyl in it? Is there really? Ah, yeah, there is. Look at that. That's our stitch right there, folks. That's our lock stitch. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness. I couldn't resist. That was so much fun. We have no idea what the dude is saying, but you know what? He's probably talking about a girl. He's probably talking about Sophia. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Boy, I don't know how I'm going to show you this stuff, because it is curly beyond measure. It is curly beyond measure. Oh my gosh. So my point before, as we were listening to that beautiful tenor, the beautiful tenor singer. Okay, yeah, I am going to totally fail on this. Is we talk a lot about adjusting tension, right, for success. I'm just going to do it like that. That's still not going to work. All right, I'm just going to walk it past the camera because this stuff is so daggone curly. All right, I'm going to set it right there. We're curling again. We're curling! All right, right about there. So my point is, we can talk about tension, you know, the tug of war all day long, but along with that, when you're sewing materials that are real tricky, like this vegan leather that is super high in vinyl, is it will also play around with the stitch length as it's feeding over the feed dogs as well. So to sew this stuff all day long, and looking at the stitches, again, I didn't change the stitch length in this instance. The stitch on the bottom is a single layer top stitch. The stitch on top is the top stitch when we went through 2 layers of this vegan style leather. Look at the dramatic difference between the two. It's significant from a standpoint of, it almost looks like we adjusted the stitch length, but we didn't. Because when you add that second layer and all of the density of that vinyl, it all of a sudden messes with the stitch length because of the feed factor. Does that make sense? So if we wanted to sew this stuff, 2 layers of it, and try to maintain as much of that stitch length integrity on a setting of 4, which is where we're at right now, we would have to increase that presser foot pressure significantly, and probably look at adding a roller foot or a walking foot to it as well. Because all we're working right now with are basic feed dogs, basic feed dog movement, and the presser foot pressure that we had. And it gives us a great stitch, but it doesn't maintain the stitch integrity from a stitch length standpoint. You can see it. It's dramatically different. So we maintain beautiful stitch quality, but the stitch integrity as far as the stitch length has been compromised because that vinyl just messes with it. It does. Even with that great tenor singer singing, it still messed with it. Let's see what else we have. Pick out some more music here. So I typed in Italian. Let's type in Italy, see if we get something different. Italy. Yeah, we got a couple different ones. Let's try this one. This one is called Tresti. Tresti. So I'm going to walk this past the camera, but you can already see it. Beautiful stitch quality, but the stitch integrity length has been compromised. Let me turn my screen around. Let's take a look at these. Kind of go down. And that's not the fault of the machine. That's a matter of having to adjust that presser foot pressure. I'll look over my shoulder here. Still beautiful stitching. Beautiful stitching. Try to get the right angle. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. But again, a presser foot pressure change of increasing it would help us. Let's look at that lock stitch. And I can already see the lock stitch is going to be page 34 too. But again, it was impacted because of that super high vinyl concentration. It was impacted from the standpoint of the length of the stitch. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. All right, I'm gonna get a crick in my neck if I keep doing this. But again, you can see the 2 layers are just fabulous. But it's a great learning lesson. that as you're trying to manage the integrity and the presentation of the stitch, not only do you have to get that sweet spot on upper and lower tension to get a good stitch balance, but you also have to factor in the feed factor with the presser foot and the attachment that you're choosing. In this case, we're using a basic attachment. We're not using a roller foot. We're not using a walking foot. And that would play into things and giving us a different outcome as far as, there we go, giving us a slightly different outcome as far as the ultimate stitch that we get. The feed, the stitch balance, and everything else placed into that. But this is a definite page 34 top stitch. Both rows we did, and then the lock stitch through these 2 layers of vegan leather. So I'm going to throw that to the back with the other stuff. And it's just interesting as you look at this. The other layers of leather, 2 layers and single layers, are all laying down beautifully. Widen this shot a little bit, I'll show you. Are all laying down beautifully. But the vegan leather, not so much so. Because the other leathers are 100% leather, genuine leather. This is vegan leather with all of that vinyl in it. So, look at Mom, it rocks. It rocks. So yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of the type of leather you're working with, and the fact that 100% leather versus man-made leather. Yeah. But this is already our sew-off sandwich. And I did quite a bit of stitching off camera as well. Okay, our next Italian song, Sandcastles, Sandcastles. All right. Okay, let's go on to some more sewing now. And we've got a number of different sew-offs we can do. Why don't we go to the light side? For my quilting friends, I've got 2 layers of 100% cotton that we're going to be piecing together. And I'd already done some of this off camera. You can see here everything from straight stitching to zigzag, because I really wanted to test the machine in managing a lighter material like this. So, you know, we went all the way from larger stitching all the way down to the satin range right over here. And we laid down a number of zigzags as well. So now we're going to try to repeat that with a single layer. Excuse me, 2 layers. 2 layers of this 100% cotton, basically just sewing them together. All right, let's give this a go. Well, we're going to have to make another adjustment, because we just got through these 2 layers of 100% cotton, we just got a very undefined top stitch, and our lock stitch is overemphasized. I'll show you what I mean. Is my screen turned around? Yes, it is now. So we just sewed these 2 layers of 100% cotton, and we have a very weak top stitch. Very, very weak. If I turn it over, let me turn it over again. If I turn it over, we've got a very poppy lock stitch. Overly poppy. I hope I have the right angle for that. Yeah, it's overly poppy. So we've got to make an adjustment on our upper tension. We've got to make an adjustment down to try to give more authority back to our bobbin case down below. Right now our upper tension is just totally muscling it and causing it to take away all that definition that we otherwise would have. So let's give some of that definition back. And we'll sew it off one more time with no music, and we'll see what impact we can bring. Right now we have a very unpoppy top stitch. Now we're trying to give some of that poppiness back. Here we go. Whoops. Let's try that again. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A simple adjustment is all it takes sometimes. Just a simple adjustment. So I'm going to leave the tails on so we can see that that top row is the one that we just did. And I'm going to bring it past the camera again. Is that right? Is that the right position? Yes. So the top row is a row that we just sewed. Oops. The top row is the row that we just sewed. The bottom row is the first row that we did, where it just was very, very undefined. Very, very undefined. And with a simple adjustment, we've got a page 34 top stitch now. Just with a simple adjustment. Sometimes problems or challenges you encounter when you're sewing are very, very complicated and very difficult. Sometimes it's machine related. Sometimes it's operator related. And in this case, it's a matter of getting that sweet spot. We go from sewing heavy grade leather and heavily vinyl based materials to sewing this 100% cotton, piecing 2 paper thin pieces together. And we had to tweak a little bit to get what we wanted. And we could even probably tweak it a little bit more. Let me see if I can set this up on our stitch off holder and even get a better look at it. Because I know moving it sometimes, it can be a little bit tricky to see it, even as careful as I'm trying to be. Yeah, we could even maybe adjust that back a little bit more, but we're definitely heading the right direction. The top row again is our second sew off, the bottom row is our first. I got to pitch that a little bit more over. Hold on a second. There we go. All right, let's try that again. So top row is our second, bottom row is our first. See the impact that we brought just with that subtle change? The bottom row was like totally undefined as far as that lock stitch. We bumped our upper tension back a little bit for this 100% cotton. And the result is evident. Look at the top versus the bottom. But see, someone that doesn't understand the concept of the tug of war, that isn't a part of our classroom, would struggle with this. They would look at that first row on the bottom there. Let me take my hand off the camera. They would look at that bottom row and say, okay, my top stitch is not defined. My bottom stitch is over-defined. Well, the upper tension is closest to the top stitch. And honestly, I've had experienced seamstresses that haven't understood this concept. And they'll look at a problem like this, and what will they do? Instead of taking away from the upper tension, they'll make the problem even worse by increasing the upper tension, and then this becomes even more underdefined. Becomes even less poppy. So instead of getting the result right there that you can see, where our top stitch is coming back in the proper form, they would sew it off again and it would get worse and worse and worse and worse. They would keep turning their upper tension up when they have to be doing the opposite. The top stitch again is defined by what the bobbin case is able to do in pulling down the thread. The lock stitch is defined by what the upper tension can do in pulling up the thread to define the lock stitch. So I'm going to give this a near page 34 because we're heading the right direction now. But I'm going to be real critical of it in saying, okay, all right, I'm going to give it a page 34 provisionally, knowing that we would go even further with this, okay? So let's flip it around now and look at the lock stitch. Let's see which one is first. Yeah. All right. So both of these stitch lines they're looking pretty good, but I like the bottom one better. I like the bottom one better because it's got a little bit more definition, but it had too much definition. So there again, it proves that you can have a challenge sometimes getting that sweet balance between the two. See right there on the end, we've got an example of great lock stitching on the top and the bottom row, especially on the bottom row. But again, when you're dealing with super thin materials, it takes a little bit of balancing sometimes before you get it exactly the way you want it. Because we took away from the lock stitch to get back to the top stitch, and we may have taken away, who knows, maybe we took a little bit too much away. But all in all, the stitch integrity between the two rows is very, very good. I'm going to give the lock stitch a near page 34, just because we're still zeroing in on exactly where we would get that sweet balance with a super light material like this 100% cotton. We're almost there. We're almost there. Bottom row, we were too much. Top row, we may have gone a little bit too far and given too much back to that top stitch. So we would be zeroing a little bit more to get exactly the way we want it. That's the Kanai principle. Constant and never-ending improvement. It's not a stopping process. It's not, we've arrived. As you're sewing a diverse field of materials like I do during these premieres, we are going to have to make fine-tuning. It's just inevitable. Even those fancy $3,000-$4,000 machines that say it can auto adjust for the material, it never works exactly the way it's supposed to. Because as you're going between heavily concentrated vinyl materials like that vegan leather, you're going to incredibly dense piercing sew-offs like that elk hide and that protected full grain leather, you're going to have to make some fine adjustments. Whether it's the lock stitch that we're looking at right now, or whether it's that top stitch. And again, we look at things with a great deal of a critical view when it comes to what we're looking for. You know, again, that bottom row was just, that we're looking at right now, and we're looking at the top stitch bottom row, was way underdefined. So we stepped back our upper tension, we gave back poppiness to that top stitch. But then we took a little bit away from that lock stitch, didn't we? The lock stitch initially is overly poppy. Our top stitch is under poppy, clearly on that bottom row. Our adjustment took us in the right direction, but we're not there yet. Not there yet. I'm going to give this a definite pass because we know exactly what we need to be doing. We know exactly what we need to be doing if we're going to be sewing this 100% cotton all day long. And the SUPERNOVA ULTRA did a fabulous job on this sew-off. So I'm going to throw that to the back as well. Actually, after I clip my threads because they're super long. Okay. What sew-off should we do next? Maybe we can do some of this. Commercial upholstery material. Commercial upholstery material. So that last song was called Sand Castles. And actually that's all they gave me. Holy mackerel. That's all they gave me for Italy. I'm going to go back to Italian and we'll replay some of these. They gave us a lot more for Italian. Holy mackerel. Seaside Piazza. We'll kind of listen to these one more time as we're finishing up our sew-offs in this premiere. So we've got 2 layers of this commercial upholstery material. I think I'm going to take us to 4 layers and see how this Italian Beauty manages that. Let's see how this Italian Beauty manages upholstery material. After I kick the camera. Okay, let's not kick the camera again. I've got the legs way out. It's like, I gotta dance around them. What? Okay, so I'm gonna take these 2 layers and I'm gonna fold it in half to get us up to 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. And we're gonna buzz down the middle of this. Actually, I'll buzz down to the left a little bit in case we have to tweak our tension adjustments to get a good stitch balance. Okay, so 4 layers of this. This should be interesting. All right, take-up arm is at the highest position. 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. Here we go. Yeah, it managed that very, very well. Very, very well. I'll show you. It managed that very, very nicely. Yeah, I don't think we'll have to sew it off a second time. I don't think we'll have to sew it off a second time. I think the balance is very, very much spot on. All right, let me get my stitch off display holder. Our confirmation stitch off display holder. Top stitch, lock stitch. Yeah, that's correct. I had to think for a second. Which way did I feed it through? Yeah, I fed it through this way. So this is our top stitch. All right, let's replay that song one more time. I think it's lovely, don't you? Seaside Piazza. All right, let's take a look at this stitching. Again, 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. This is our top stitch. Pause right there. That is so page 34. I would even say page 34 plus. Wow. Does this Italian Beauty like upholstery material or what? Absolutely amazing. Absolutely spot on. Totality of the stitching. Now we got to come out too far. Let's go right about there. So again, 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. It's an absolute page 34. I would even say it's on the fringe of a page 34 plus. It managed this material incredibly well. Upholstery material is incredibly difficult to get through. Sometimes, depending on how it's processed, even more difficult than leather. And yet the stitch integrity, the stitch presentation of this top stitch is absolutely the way we want to be seeing it. Let's take a look at the lock stitch. And I'll turn that towards the camera. Look at the thickness of what we just sewed through with 4 layers of upholstery material, commercial upholstery material. So we're going to look at that lock stitch now. We're going to look at it as soon as I get the material to cooperate. All right. I think we won. I think we won. So this is our lock stitch through 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. And I can already tell you that from my vantage point, we are absolutely spot on. And again, might almost be able to take a little bit away, but I think we got a good balance right now. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. That's our lock stitch. Again, I would say it's definitely a page 34. Definitely a page 34. Well, I am incredibly impressed. Again, as much sewing as we've already done on this needle, and now we just did 4 layers of commercial upholstery material. And this Italian Beauty managed it flawlessly as far as launch and everything else. Not an easy sew-off when you're going through this many layers of commercial upholstery material, and yet it maintained a page 34 plus top stitch, a near page 34 plus lock stitch. Beautiful stitching. Let me throw this to the back as well. Absolutely a pass. Absolutely the direction that we would expect an Italian Beauty like this to be going. Fabulous job. So Mama's is our next one. We've already heard this, but we're going to hear Mama again. Mama wants to be heard. Mama gets loud, so let me turn her back a little bit. All right, why don't we go into our acrylic fiber now? This horrible acrylic fiber that everyone always cringes when I say the words acrylic fiber. And it's because they know what this stuff is made to do. It's made to sew awnings. Awnings are exposed to high winds, extreme temperatures, heat, wind, everything. And yet, because of the way it's processed and made, it stands up to all of those elements without failing. So when we go through 2 layers of this, it's like sewing patio blocks. It really is. Let's give this a try. And I think we'll lay down a zigzag doing it, because the zigzag is a lot easier to see on this material too. All right, acrylic fiber. Feared by everyone and makes children scream. All right, we will lay down a zigzag on this. Okay, take up arm at the highest position. And let's see how this Italian Beauty manages needle swing through one of the most difficult materials that we will sew in this premiere. This dreaded, terrifying acrylic fiber. Here we go. What did I do? Oh, I see what I did. Okay. I locked it in reverse. I went the wrong direction. Hold on a second. Let me do this. Let me do this again. Oops. Oh, gumdrops. Let me start over. And then I was making an adjustment with the needle down in the material, which is an absolute no-no. And I've talked about that before, haven't I? So hopefully I didn't just bend our needle. I hope I didn't bend our needle. See that when you're on a live premiere in front of the cameras underneath the bright lights, you can goof up sometimes. But that's part of being a student and a teacher, right? Sometimes a teacher, always a student. All right, so let's try this again without locking it in reverse. Okay. Let me go back to my zigzag. Okay, see that? Acrylic fiber freaks everybody out. Okay, I think we're finally ready. All right, so laying down a zigzag and actually sewing forward this time. We're going to try to go through 2 layers of this acrylic fiber. Here we go. Woo! All right, after all the drama, I think we finally got it. Now I'm curious about how our tension balance is for going through material like this. I think we're okay. Yeah, absolutely. We're doing really well. Doing very, very well. We'll try laying down a straight stitch on this too. And then we'll look at both stitch lines. All right, so let's lay down a straight stitch on this also. Adjust that back. Okay, so next to this zigzag, we're going to lay down a straight stitch now, and then we'll take a look at these stitches. I keep repeating myself. I think I need more coffee, or less. All right, here we go. Yeah. Oh, okay. We'll have to stitch this off a second time for the straight stitch. I'm seeing that our lock stitch is underdefined for this type of material. Kind of like we encountered with the genuine elk hide and I believe the protected full grain leather. I'll show you what I mean and then we'll sew down it again and correct that. Okay. Okay, I think that should be the right angle. Let's see here. Let's put on Italian Morning while we're looking at these stitches. All right, we'll look at the zigzag first, and then we'll move down to the straight stitch. Absolutely, page 34. Gorgeous, gorgeous zigzag. All right, let's drop down to that straight stitch now. Very, very good looking stitch. I'm going to give both of these a page 34, although I can tell my needle is getting tired. All right, now let's look at that lock stitch, and I think you'll see what I'm saying in relation to that being underserved on our straight stitch. All right, let's look at the zigzag first, just like we did on the front. Very, very nice looking zigzag. Very, very good looking zigzag. Now let's look at that straight stitch, and here we're going to see an underserved. Again, we're looking at the lock stitch. We're going to see an I've got to loosen that up a little bit. We're going to see an underserved lock stitch, meaning that the upper tension was too weak. See that? It's very, very underserved. Kind of like that other sew-off we did where the top stitch was the same way. It didn't have enough poppiness. Yeah, we need to fix that. Very, very underserved. All right, let's stitch it off again. We're going to bump up our upper tension just slightly. Again, if you're sewing cotton all the time, you find that stitch balance, and that's your sweet spot. You don't have to do anything. But when you're sewing a diverse field of materials like we are, you might have to make certain tweaks. It's just a given. So I'm going to bump us up from 6 to about 7 again. And I think that should take us in the right direction with that lock stitch. That's way, way underserved right now. All right, are you ready? Here we go. Perfect timing, right as the song wrapped up. Okay, so we're going to see what impact we brought. I'll leave these tails on there, on this side, so that we can clearly see which row. Oh yeah, wow, wow! Knowledge is power. It makes such a difference when you know what to do. So I'm going to put it like this with our last sew off on the very top. But right now we're looking at the top stitch, and what I'm looking to determine is, did we take too much away so that we're underserving the top stitch with this acrylic fiber? Because it's possible to go too far in making an adjustment. Maybe instead of going to 7 on upper tension, I should have gone to 6.5. But I'm saying that's only the case if our whoa, that was exciting. That is, if our top stitch has lost too much. So let's take a look at that first. So we'll look at these 2 stitch rows. Again, the top one is the last one we did. Yeah, I think we did go a little bit too far. We started out okay, but then it kind of lost its rhythm. See, right there we're solid. Of course, we are dealing with a needle that's losing a lot of its thunder too. So let's take a look at that lock stitch and see whether or not we made an impact on that, because that was our main concern. But I do think I went a little bit too far. We took a little bit too much away from that top stitch. So this is our lock stitch now. This is our lock stitch. And what we're looking to see is, did we bring greater stitch clarity to that top row? Is that top row going to have greater stitch clarity on the lock stitch? Because the lower row just below it that we did first definitely didn't. What do you think? It's clear. It's absolutely clear. The direction we went with adjusting that upper tension up slightly, maybe a little bit too far, but the upper tension adjustment we made in bumping it up gave us that definition we were looking for with this acrylic fiber on the lock stitch. I mean, the bottom and the top are night and day. The bottom row is the first one we did where there was like little or no stitch definition. The top row is our second after we made that adjustment up. It's night and day. Look at that. But again, I may have gone too far because we did take some away from that top stitch. So if we were sewing a ton of this stuff, 6.5 might be the sweet spot to get a nice top stitch and lock stitch balance. Pause right there. Look at the top row. Look at the bottom row. And that was with a subtle adjustment, a slight bump up on the upper tension. But again, I say slight, but I may have gone a little bit too far because we did take away from that top stitch. But see, that's the science of getting stitch balance. And it changes and it varies depending on the layers you're working with, the thicknesses, the type of material. But if we were sewing this awning material all day long, we are only a hiccup away from getting that sweet balance for top and lock stitch, so that we have stitching like this on the top row instead of what we had on the bottom row to begin with, and then we get that sweet balance on the locks on the top stitch as well. But you see how we did that? We were facing a problem that, again, for even an experienced sewer that doesn't understand the concept of stitch balance and what do you need to do to affect this, may have gone the opposite way. They're looking at the bottom of their material like we are right now with that bottom row, and they're saying, Jiminy Crickets, I have like no lock stitch. It's way underserved. So what are they going to do potentially? Not being as smart of a student as you are, they're going to say, well, the lock stitch is closest to the bobbin. I've got to turn that bobbin pressure up. I've got to increase the bobbin pressure to try to get a better lock stitch. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it, at some level? Because they're right next to each other. The bobbin is a lot closer to the lock stitch than it is to the top stitch. But if they did that, if they went with that logic, it would have the opposite effect. It would make it worse and worse and worse and worse. And with just a slight adjustment, just a slight bump up, we were able to take a lock stitch that was way underserved and give it a page 34 lock stitch. That's what we're looking at right now, is a page 34 lock stitch. We went from a, oh my gosh, where's the lock stitch, to a page 34 with a slight adjustment. But again, fresh needle, maybe looking at a different presser foot attachment, like a roller foot, and we would get that sweet balance top and bottom. It's that easy sometimes. if you know what to do. And that's what this classroom is all about. Teaching you all what to do. There's our zigzag again too, and that's absolutely spot on. So I'm going to give this a definite pass. And on the lock stitch, I'm going to give it a page 34. I'm going to give the other side a near page 34 on the top stitch because we're still refining that. I think we're heading the right way here. This one we went a little bit too far. But it's great to know what to do, isn't it? It's great to know what to do. Okay, a little bit more Italian music. And yeah, this is going to be almost the same song. It's just a longer version of it. And they added thatched villages for some reason. Wait, thatched villagers. Sorry. Thatched villagers. Thatched villagers. All right, let's wipe this off again. Well, why don't we do some of this absolutely dreaded, and I'm going to adjust our upper tension to like about a 6.5. Because the next thing we're going to sew is this compressed felt material that broke one of my needles during a premiere. Yes, it did. And we're not going to go through a single layer of it, we're going to go through 2 layers of it. And I will sew a little bit off to the left just in case we have to tweak the tension. All right. And this is exactly the same needle that I was using when I broke it. A size 90, which is size 14, universal needle. I hope it doesn't happen again. But if it does, I could show you how cool it is and how easy it is to change out a needle on this machine. It's so much easier than most other machines. Diet Pepsi. Type in the chat if you are a Diet Coke fan over Pepsi. I'm okay with that. Everybody has their preferences. So if you prefer Diet Coke over Diet Pepsi, type in the chat Diet Coke all the way or something like that so that you can be heard and you can represent Diet Coke. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go and try to sew this compressed fiber stuff that it's almost as terrifying as acrylic fiber, and probably more so because it broke a needle. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whoa, slow down there, buddy. Slow down, you're way too excited. Oh, wow. Wow! Remember I said I was going to adjust the upper tension to 6.5? Because on the other ones we were kind of like too high, too low, too low, too high. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll leave this other space so that Marie can sew down it too. Ha ha ha! Hey! Alright. So this is our top stitch. Through this compressed felt. The dreaded compressed felt. All right, let's take a look at this before the music ends. Oh, I came so close. I came so close. All right, so again, this is our top stitch going through 2 layers of compressed felt. I am so at page 34 plus. Yes, I am. I am at page 34 plus. Wow. Holy mackerel! This Italian beauty is loving and laughing in the face of this otherwise terrifying compressed felt. Laughing in the face of this terrifying compressed felt and laying down a page 34 plus top stitch. Let's flip it around and look at that lock stitch. And I'm actually seeing that that lock stitch is maybe a little poppier than it needs to be, almost as if we adjusted the upper tension down to 5.5. Maybe we could have gone to 5 on this and still pulled it off. We could have still pulled it off maybe and had a perfect balance, that sweet spot between the lock stitch and the top stitch. But I'll tell you one thing, we are still on a page 34 plus with that top stitch, and I think we're going to be page 34 plus on this lock stitch too. Oh yeah, we are. Jiminy crickets. Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, it's believable because we just did it, but it's still unbelievable. That is absolutely a page 34 plus lock stitch and a page 34 top stitch too. See that? Sometimes you find a sweet spot straight away. Straight away. Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm inspired to dance. But I'll resist. Let's take a look at that sew-off sandwich instead of dancing. And this is all on camera. These are all on camera. Like I said, nowhere else on YouTube, on the internet, will you find somebody that puts a machine to this test on a live premiere. It's not going to happen, folks. Unbelievable. Wow. Hey, let's see if that stuff is still curly. Hold on a second. Where is it? There it is. Yeah. It did not lose its curliness at all. I think that vinyl, if they had made dinosaurs on a vinyl, we would still have dinosaurs. Yeah, we would. Unbelievable, though. All of this on camera, folks. All right, let's continue. We have a couple more to do. A couple more. Just a couple more. And it's in the realm of commercial grade canvas. Commercial grade canvas. We're going to really step it up now a little bit, folks. I'm going to increase my presser foot pressure. I wish I had a rolling foot on. I don't. I'm going to fold this in half. 2 layers. I'm going to fold it in the middle. 4 layers. I'm going to fold it again. 6 layers of commercial grade canvas. All right. Let's see how this Italian beauty manages this. Hey. Ho! Hey! Yep! Yep! All right, here we go! 6 layers of commercial grade canvas! Wow. I wasn't even steering that. It was just like autopilot. Autopilot! All right, let's see what we think of this. Yeah, I can tell the needle's getting tired, but it did a brilliant job of managing this. It did a brilliant job of managing this. After all the sewing, this Schmetz size 90, size 14, is still hanging in there. It's still hanging in there. All right. I might just lay down a zigzag next to that for fun. Just for fun. I think I might do that. All right, let's lay down a zigzag next to this, just for fun. Locking it in place. Okay, here goes a zigzag down 6 layers of commercial grade canvas. I have no idea what's going to happen. I did not test this off camera. Here we go. Whoops. Get ready, buddy. You can do this. Steady as she goes. Steady as she goes. Steady as she goes. Wow. Jiminy crickets. Okay, let me clip these threads and let's take a look at these two lines of sew-off. These two sew-off lines. You can say it either way, I think, maybe. Look at what we just sewed through, folks. It's like a Chicago phone book. 6 layers of commercial grade canvas. Let me get off our sew-off, confirmation sew-off holder, and let's take a look at these. Wow. I am really, really, really impressed. I'm trying to remember which way it goes now. I think it goes like that. Okay, so this, I think, is our top stitch. We're going to look at both sides anyway. All right, this is our French Cafe that we're going to listen to next, our French Cafe. I want to stay true to Italian through this whole thing. We're going to stay Italian, even if we have to repeat songs. So starting with the totality of stitching, folks, that is exactly what we want to be seeing. Again, not a light sew-off. We've done light sew-offs. We've done heavy sew-offs. We've done real leather. We've done fake leather. We've done canvas. We've done upholstery material. And a lot more sewing as well off camera with this tried and true Schmetz size 9014 universal needle. And it's still performing for us now. Let's zoom in and look at these. Wow. Holy mastacholi. Holy rigatoni. Unbelievable. Pause right there. Pause right there. Perfect timing. Perfect timing! So this is 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, folks. It's a definite pass. It's a definite page 34. I'm debating, is it a page 34 plus? Maybe so. Maybe so. But again, I'm committed to always making things better. So with a fresh needle and maybe a different presser foot attachment, it could even be better than it is, but it's definitely a page 34. Maybe a page 34 plus. We're back to Monk again. Let's turn it over and look at the lock stitch. And again, look at that from the side, folks. You really can't tell from this side. Look at it from that side. That is a little bit of insanity. And I can't see the insanity because I had my screen pointed the wrong way. That's a little bit of insanity right there. All right, let's look at the lock stitch now, at last. All right. I'm going to turn this up. It's a fun song. Are there any Monk fans out there? Did anyone enjoy watching Tony do his thing in the series Monk? I wouldn't even get into which girl you liked better, Sharona or the other one, because that's a debate unto itself. But if there are any Monk fans, type in the chat. Yep, I'm a Monk fan. Yes, I am. Pause right there. Folks, page 34 lock stitch. Holy mackerel. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Yes! Made it to the end. So a page 34 lock stitch, a page 34 almost plus top stitch. What a great way to wrap up the sewing portion of the premiere. Although I might do one more sew off. I think I will. Look at that though. Absolutely incredible. I'm going to throw that to the back. 6 layers of commercial grade canvas, and this Italian beauty has just been dancing with the grace and beauty of Sophia Loren through this entire premiere. The entire premiere. Just the grace and beauty of that lovely lady has been transposed onto this lovely machine that belongs to Marie. And what we're going to do now is look at how do you take a machine like this that is definitely not sewing well when it comes to the workshop. How do you take it from that to what we've seen so far on a diverse field of sew-offs? We've sewn a ton of different materials, folks. A ton of different materials. And this Italian beauty has done a brilliant job. A brilliant job in page 34 stitching. So here's at the very beginning. And you know, it's kind of like going to eBay or Etsy or Facebook Marketplace, and they post some pretty pictures of the machine. And the machine, you know, from the outside, yeah, that looks like something I would consider buying. Definitely. Of course, the seller doesn't know the provenance, and their idea of servicing has been to blow it off with an air compressor and maybe put a little bit of oil wherever they can find the oil could go. Of course, they probably didn't take the top off like I did. They didn't disassemble the upper tension. They didn't do all the other things I did. And that's why when you get the machine after you look at it, and it looked pretty in the pictures, it's not going to be doing what this Italian beauty has done for you on this live premiere. It's not going to do it. So like I always say, buyer beware. Don't go with appearance only, because the machine can look pretty doggone good. But once you dig into that machine, like Mr. Bean and I did, all of a sudden, you get a reality check as to where that machine is really at. Where it really is at. So again, we're looking at the beauty of the machine. Beautiful, sexy, curvy lines. As it should be. It's an Italian beauty, for goodness sakes. It's an Italian beauty. Absolutely beautiful design, whoever came up with the design for these. Oh, now we're getting closer and we're starting to look at all of the junk just choking the life out of this Italian beauty. What is that about? What is that about? Look at even Sophia in that shot looks a little bit surprised and shocked. She's like, wait a second. That looked really good from a distance, and now we're getting closer. And all of a sudden, all the ugliness is coming to the surface. Holy mackerel. Blech. That's okay. We're going to make it right. And even as much as I did for this machine over the 16 hours, when we zoom in super close like I like to do, we'll see little specks of dirt here and there. So even as much as I try to get rid of all of it, when you go under that level of magnification, some of it will still show up, as we saw in this premiere. Some of it will still show up. Ah, we're going to reveal now that secret door for winding a bobbin. And there it is. Really interesting bobbin winding tire on this. It's not rubber, it's almost like plastic. It's almost like a super hard plastic. So it's like, you know, they're bobbin winding tires for these Italian beauties, especially on these SUPERNOVA models. They like lasted forever. That's probably the original one. Now we're going to take the top off and get a closer look at the machine. A lot of buildup in there, folks. All of this varnishing, all of this dirt and grime and old caramelized oil holds the machine back. It doesn't have full power. It doesn't have full potential with all of this buildup on there. And again, because you're having to move to adjust stitch width in that, some of these things were really gummed up badly. That's where your cam would go if we had one, but we don't have one. But that's your cam mounting point right there. Especially over here, if you look to the faceplate area, you can see how filthy that was. Incredibly, incredibly filthy. Once I adjust the camera, you can see it. There we go. That's better. You see all that browning on there? That brownish, almost looks like tarnish. That's all veneer and old oil fossilized on there, holding the machine back. A very, very dirty machine, as I told Marie. And she wasn't surprised to hear that. It's gotten a lot of use over the years, and it hasn't really ever, it's never gone through a service like this. Pretty gross, huh? Again, from the outside, beautiful, sexy, clean, vivacious, Italian beauty. And then you pull back the covers and start to look into the inside of the machine, and all of a sudden, bleh, bleh. And some of you might look at that and say, well, there's a lot of lint in there. That's normal. It is, but you should be doing a general cleanup of your machine after every project, and most people will put that off. They'll go into a deferred maintenance mentality of saying, well, I'll do it on the next project. I'll do it on the next project. I'll do it on the next project. And it never gets done. A lot of buildup. All of this, look at that. It just caked on there, choking the life out of this Italian beauty. Excuse me. Starting to focus down in the brain center now of the machine, the raceway. And you remember me talking about that daisy wheel where you can spin it around and get different covers as far as the feed dogs, different throat plate openings in that, if you're using twin needles, etc. A lot of people will clean the top of that, but a lot of people don't even know that own these machines, that daisy wheel comes off completely. And wait until you see what is hidden underneath Marie's daisy wheel. And she's a very persnickety owner. She doesn't mess around. She takes machine ownership seriously. And yet still, things can be neglected. Sometimes for lack of initiative, sometimes for lack of knowledge. So that again is our control for turning on the cam function if we had cams. This is, again, I pointed out all these controls. Even this area right here was just filthy. Again, our reverse and our stitch length. More distant shot. Here we're looking at some of the stuff underneath the front edge of the bed, which is the Better Homes and Gardens, blah, 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 along with the serial number right there. 35-0316545. And again, I can tell you that this machine is going to be from right around 1956, but the Italians, like some of the other makers, the Swedes, don't always maintain the greatest of records. They don't. But the approximate dating on this machine is going to be right around 1956. Now this is the underside of the machine. It would be right underneath the pillar. And this is a relay area that allows the machine to regulate electricity more effectively. And it ties directly into the motor. And I'm going to be digging into this as well. This had never ever been opened before. That was pretty apparent. More of the mechanics on the bottom, just coated in smothering varnish, old grease, old oil, just a mess. That's our main drive that goes into the raceway hook system. And it was really, really gummed up badly. There's our actual hook system from the side. There it is from the front. And that also gets torn down completely as well. All of that has to be cleaned, stripped of old varnishing, old oil, and then a light coat of machine oil and or kerosene goes over all of those parts. And again, you can see straight away looking into that hook system that this is going to be an oscillating hook system, not a rotary hook system. The other thing that I couldn't demonstrate during the premiere is that the hook system assembly that you see right here is not horizontally in a fixed position. As the machine is sewing, this main shaft that's attached to this hook system actually goes back and forth like this very rapidly, much like the Japanese machines that have similar setups with oscillating hooks. So imagine that this hook system, instead of just going like this, it's going like this, but it's also going like this, back and forth, to help complete that that zigzag and any other needle movement type stitch. It's helping actually to maneuver that at the same time as the needle swing is occurring too. Really quite fascinating technology and engineering. So here we're starting to dig into that. I'll just call it kind of a power reserve or power boost area that feeds into the motor. And there's a lot of cleaning that has to occur in there as well. Here is the equivalent in this area right here of a second set of stacked lamentations that are part of this engineering design on this machine that allow you to have, the whole purpose of this is to allow you to have that boost capacity for the machine, to go from regular power to supernova power. Here we're starting to clean that off. It probably to your eyes right now, it doesn't look horrible, does it? But wait until you see the difference between what it is now and what I bring it to through the process. I don't know if you're able to see on the screen, but there's a dramatic contrast between above and below. This has been cleaned. This has not been cleaned. And I don't know what's showing up on the screen. Let's see if I have to adjust that a little bit more. I probably do. Yeah, you can see it. You can see it. Above, you can see the silver is very prominent. Below, you can still see all the crud built up on there. And this is part of the electrical field away from the motor that gives you that surge to supercharge the motor and to give you more drive during sew-offs. With all of that stuff built up on there, it's not going to do its job. It's not going to be able to. That's the way it's supposed to look. And even this area, even though it's not the motor itself, it's going to be flushed as well. It's going to be flushed so that all of those crevices down deep into those stacked lamentations that I can't reach with a dental tool, all of that crud is going to be washed out. And some of that crud actually looks almost like an oil slick, you'll see. There's our actual controls that I pulled out to check the wiring. Again, you're never going to get this level of servicing in verifying wiring, making sure that there's no loose screws in the electrical field, as I've found innumerable times over the years. And recently too. You're never going to get that level of servicing at your local sewing center. That was my Diet Pepsi that just took a dive. I don't think I'll open it right away. But all of this matters, folks. If you want to have a fully optimized machine, this is how deep a machine needs to be dug into. This is how surgical level you have to get so that that machine has every opportunity to shine like this Italian Beauty has during this premiere today. All of this matters. Without optimized electricity, the motor can't be optimized. Even if you clean it like I do and tear it down, it's not going to have full capacity. Look at that stuff that came out of there. It almost looks like chocolate, doesn't it? That's just crud that was built up inside of there. And then because of the solution that I use, it basically groups it together because it's oil-based. Working along the electrical areas now to get all of the crud out of there. Again, crud is not going to stay in place and be good. It's going to migrate, so you got to get rid of it. Around the controls as well. And even as meticulous as I am, and as much attention to detail as I apply to my process, I still, in a period of 16 hours, I still will miss things. Minuscule things. But that's because under magnification, when we're doing these premieres, you can see as close as if you were to lean into the machine right at the workbench, as it should be. But I'm constantly improving my process. It goes back to that Kanai principle. Constant and never-ending improvement. Here's one of the covers that goes over the lamentations in this power reserve area that allows you to have that power boost. And that was filthy as well, as you can see. So much stuff built up in there, it's incredible. Adjustments and verifications. Lint and just blah, all kinds of stuff deep inside of the machine. It's put back together now, and it's looking the way it's supposed to look. Dental tools are wonderful. They really do help to get a lot of those areas clean, like that now is looking like it's supposed to be looking. That one still needs work. You can still see the varnishing and buildup on there. Varnishing and buildup. But I'll get it eventually. Step by step by step. A lot of stuff built up over here. And that's a critical area of the machine. That's the area that will allow us to drop feed dogs. And it has a number of other functions as well. And it's just totally crudded up. See that? Again, not to hammer home the truth, but it is what it is. Go to a local service center, this stuff is never going to be touched. Never, ever going to be touched. And it all impacts the performance of your machine. See that? Done over here, still working over there. You can see the contrast dramatically. And it's not just using dental tools. I have special solvents. I have a number of other things that I use to strip all this stuff down. And then again, once you strip metal, you don't want to leave it vulnerable. So I do have a solution that I apply to the metal to preserve it and protect it and to keep that stuff from building up as easily again. What do you think? Our initial impression of that Italian Beauty, she's not as clean as we thought. Lubricating some of the areas now that have been stripped. Getting into those difficult spots with Q-tips and other tools. Dirt is the enemy of our vintage sewing machines, folks. And we're about to throw that enemy away in the garbage. I know that almost sounds a little bit melodramatic, but it really is. I get really, I wouldn't say emotional, but I get real passionate about doing the process right. And I think that's the beginning. We went full circle. Yep, there's Mr. Bean again. This is the second set of photos right here. And that's the Italian Beauty tilted back, because there's a lot of areas that you can reach when you tilt it this way versus tilting it back. So I've got a padding pillow underneath there, and going to service all those other areas that need to be taken care of. But first, we will do one last sew-off on this Italian Beauty. And I think we will do commercial grade canvas, since that's what I have. I could do more of that vegetable tan leather. I really had fun with that stuff. We did, what, 2 layers of that? I think we did 2 layers of that. We've already done canvas. We've pretty much sewn everything that we normally would sew. I'll throw that to the side. We put on some more music while I'm contemplating whether we'll do one more sew-off or whether we'll just stop where we're at, because we've covered so many things already as far as a field of materials. This is called Morning Stroll. Morning Stroll. Oh, that's Monk. Let's not do Monk. We'll listen to this guy sing again. Bubblegum material. I hadn't thought about bubblegum material. Maybe we'll do that. Why don't we do that? We'll do bubblegum material. That way we don't necessarily repeat any sew-offs. Come on a little bit here. And if you're new to this channel and you're saying, why is he calling it bubblegum material? It's because of this. See that? All right. Let's go ahead and do a zigzag and a straight stitch down, and we will wrap up the sewing portion of this and then go to those final pictures. You got to understand the process that gets us to this point to be able to premiere the machine. It's so essential that you understand that. Zigzag, here we go. 2 layers of bubblegum material, here we go. All right, straight stitch down, and then we'll look at these stitches. Well, like I said, when you sew a diverse field of materials, inevitably you're going to decide you need to make some tweaks. And I'm going to make a slight tweak here. I'm going to sew that stitch line of straight stitching one more time. Exactly. See that? You could sew one material doing a sew off like this on a Premier, and not go as wide scope as I do, and you probably wouldn't have to tweak the tension at all, even if you changed layers, because the material type is the same. But because of the wide scope of sew offs that I do, inevitably we got to do a little bit of tweaking. That's what I just did right here. You'll see why. You'll see why straight away. Notice if this bubblegum material cooperates. I hope it does. I may have to walk this across. It's kind of curling like that vegan leather stuff. Okay, let me check my shot. Okay, that's actually not a bad shot. I could come maybe just a tiny little bit closer. There we go. Let's see if that's, yeah, that's about right. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is the, obviously the top row is the zigzag that we did. The next row down, let me just double check that I'm correct. Yes, the next row down is the first row of straight stitching that we did. And the thing that I noticed is that the straight stitch was a little bit underserved. So real quick, what I did is I, again with the top stitch being impacted by how much the bobbin case can pull down, I reduced our upper tension just barely. I went from 6.5 down to 6. And look at the impact between those two lines of straight stitching. Again, the first row is on top. The second row where I made that little adjustment is on the bottom. Whoops. It is stretchy. Look at that. Yeah, if you look real close, you can see, I mean, they're both decent, but the bottom is page 34 plus. It's just absolutely spot on. I'll go across real slow so you can see them all the way. Again, that top row is, the higher row is not bad, the top row, but the lower row is committed to our Kanai principle. It's improvement over what was okay. You see that? Absolutely incredible. So I love improving things all the time. My processes, my restorative techniques and everything else. But even here, we took what would have been, you know, a marginal page 34 stitch, that top row of straight stitching, and we made it a solid page 34 plus. That's what we're all about here. We're always improving. We're always looking to make it better than it was. We're not settling with mediocrity and saying, well, that top stitch is pretty good on the top row. It's pretty good. It is pretty good. But look at the one on the bottom and compare the two. And that was with a slight upper tension adjustment because the bobbin case was trying so hard, but it was losing because the upper tension was pulling just a little bit too hard. Let's turn over and look at the lock stitch. So again, I think we're going to have solid stitching all the way around. Solid stitching all the way around. And again, maybe I went a little bit too far, because we've got two good looking lock stitches, but maybe I should have gone a little bit, you know, not taking quite as much away from the lock stitch to give it back to the top stitch. Pause right there. Excellent stitching all the way around. But again, if we sewed a ton of bubblegum material all day long, we had a bubblegum material sewing factory. It's all we do. We would find that sweet spot and we could lock in on that. We could use the same type of needles, thread, and get the same outcome every single time. Instead of a one-off like this, or in this case a two-off, where we're still zeroing in and getting it just exactly as we like it. But as you look at this stitching, it's definitely in the page 34 class. And that's what we're always aiming for. Always aiming for page 34. Which is not perfection. It's near perfection. So again, an incredible lock stitch through 2 layers of this very tricky bubblegum material. Also page 34 on the top stitching that we did. So I'm incredibly pleased. What a great way to wrap up a premiere from the sew-off standpoint. And let me grab all the sew-offs we did live on this premiere today. These are all the sew-offs we did on camera today. I don't know if anyone else that puts a machine like this to the test, puts it under the bright lights, gets the camera rolling and says, all right, let's see if this machine deserves to graduate from the workshop today. I've already printed up the graduation certificate. Yeah. And these are the additional sew-offs that I did off camera. I already showed these to you. And these as well. So all in all, that incredible Schmetz size 90 14 needle, this is what it's done. And of course I'm going to change it out before I get this machine back to Marie. Folks, this is the real deal. This is really, truly, after my restorative process is complete, this is really, truly putting a machine to the test. So when I give my stamp of approval, I know that that machine is ready to get the job done for that customer. And I would do exactly the same thing for you. This is my process, which I'm continuing to improve on. But every machine that comes to this workshop, whether it's dropped off, whether I pick it up, whether it's shipped, whether it's dropped in by air, which hasn't happened yet and hopefully doesn't. But if they packed my way, probably be okay. This is the level of attention that your machine is going to get. You know, you're not going to get this at a local sewing center. It's not going to happen. It just isn't. I mean, that is the truth. They couldn't afford to stay in business if they invested 16 hours on every machine. They couldn't do it. They'd be out of business in a month, maybe sooner. All right, let's get to our last set of photos. I will put on a little bit of music for us to enjoy while we're Well, I hope you've enjoyed this premiere where we've kind of stepped into the beautiful country of Italy. And the last thing we're doing now is just taking a look at some more of these progress shots so you can just appreciate it doesn't happen automatically. You're not going to see a machine performing like Marie Orlando's machine without it going through this intense process. And these photos, I think I had almost 200 photos that I put up on Facebook. This doesn't even capture half of the process that I took Marie's machine through. Not even half. There's that beautiful lady, Sophia Loren, still living and still as gorgeous as she was when she was performing in that spot with Cary Grant in that opening part on the premiere. There's a hook system that's starting to look like it's supposed to look. We're going after all the stuff and getting the machine deep cleaned, adjusted, perfected. That's actually the inside of the faceplate cover that I took off to clean that area as well. Why would you clean it? It's only the cover, right? Yeah, but the cover faces towards all the moving components that are inside of that faceplate area. And dirt will migrate. It'll get it all contaminated again if you don't get rid of it. And there you can see I took off that daisy wheel and I'm doing a deep cleaning and service on that as well. And wait until you see all the junk that was underneath that shiny, pretty cover, including the head of a broken needle. See, that's the level of attention, folks. That's the difference, and why people ship their machines from all around the world. All around the world. And again, if you went into a local sewing center, that cover would never come off. That daisy wheel would never come off, and all of this crud would stay there and would work its way into your raceway and your hook system. But we're not going to leave it there. We're going to go after it. No mercy. No mercy on dirt. Critical lubrication points all over this Italian Beauty. Remember all that crud over there by the feed dog dropping that? We're going after that now. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Ha ha ha! Try and hide. I will find you. I will find you. Including on the reverse, that was all cruddy too. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now that lever that I'm cleaning right there on the back of the machine is actually a way that you can lock the machine in reverse. There's our motor up top. Mr. Bean is checking that out. Look at all the filth and crud in there too. That's the engine of this machine, as my friend Hans from Norway would say it. And that engine is filthy right now. Mr. Bean is like, whoa, that's messed up, man. That's messed up. All of that would still be in your machine if it hadn't come to the workshop. Bobbin winding assembly gets deep cleaned too and adjusted. Look at all that junk. Clean, filthy still. Inside of the motor cover. Adjustments on the motor and verifications that everything is secure. Look at that workbench. That is like buzzing like a beehive. Mr. Bean is the best supervisor I've ever had. There's our upper tension, which it's a little tricky on this machine if you decide to attempt it yourself. A little bit tricky. Again, this upper tension would be as filthy as it was when I started if you take it to a local service center. Look at that. How is that supposed to maintain tension properly? How is it supposed to get page 34 stitching? It can't. We're going to make that right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Why would we clean all of that and put it back into a filthy well with a filthy surface? That makes no sense. Let's go after that now. Oh yeah, that looks better. What about that well though? Is that still dirty? Oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah, it is. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Before. After. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that song, don't you? Isn't that lovely? see. Let's put this one on. Even after that's cleaned, I'm still getting more junk off of it. Yes, I go through a lot of Q-tips. A lot of Q-tips. Now there is a clean upper tension assembly going into a clean machine well. That makes sense. If you didn't clean one or the other, that would be like changing your oil and leaving the dirty filter on your car. It makes no sense. And yet that's what the majority of people do that do my kind of work. You know why? Because it takes too much time to do it this way. Mr. Bean, what do you think? Yep, I agree. Spot on. Hey! All cleaned up. Beautiful. 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 More beautiful. What about that foot controller? That's connected directly to the motor, right? We got to do something with the foot controller. Holy mackerel! Are those dead bugs inside of there? It's a dead fly and a dead ladybug. Wow. Wow! There's a lot of filth in there too. Alright, let's go after this. What I'm doing here is I'm making an adjustment on sensitivity to the foot controller. It was a little bit too sluggish. Not anymore. More magic sauce for cleaning electrical components. All of that stuff that is copper needs to be stripped down and then preserved so that it doesn't varnish again. That's what I'm doing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You can actually read the plate now. Who knew? Oh, yuck. Yuck. Oh my gosh, yuck. All right, let's fix that too. Come on. Oh yeah. Yeah. Woo. Hey. 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 Oh, ba-dum-ba-dum. All right, let's look at those off-camera sew-offs. Oh my goodness. We created like a quilt, a mini quilt. And beautiful stitching. Wow. Wow. See Mr. Bean there too. Mr. Bean is like, yo, what's up? I am working so hard. Scott, you give me a raise. That's not going to happen, my friend. That's not going to happen. Sorry. And that material, I didn't mention this material right here that we're sewing is also 100% cotton. It's just a different color. Although I think we sewed this, oh no, I sewed pink as well. I sewed pink and this burgundy color. Both of them. I think that's full circle. Yes, it is. Well, Sophia Loren, thank you for making Necchi so successful and for bringing your beauty to this beautiful machine. Wherever it is, it's somewhere. Hello, Mr. Bean. I'm looking for the machine. There it is. Yay. So again, we wrap up another premiere of putting this Italian beauty through the paces and her graduating with flying colors. And now we prepare to leave Italy after a lovely visit and after meeting the beautiful stage and star Sophia Loren. God bless everybody.